Hi, I'm Tim Tyler, and this is a video about binocular camcorders. Many of you will have seen a 3D movie by now. I think the first one I saw was The Polar Express some years ago, and that was a computer-generated movie, and it had two cameras in the simulated scenes, and each generated an image for one eye, basically. And then the technology of the projection theatre involved polarised light, so there was a projection screen up in front of you, and then two projectors. Each projector projected an image for each eye, and one projector used light that was polarised that direction, and the other projector used light that was polarised in that direction. And then you had spectacles that you had to wear with a polarised filter in each eye, and the filters made sure that you could only see one of the intended images, and the result was what appeared to be a 3D movie taking place in front of you. At the moment, the 3D movie technology is confined to theatres, and from the point of view of the theatre owners, it's probably quite a good way of getting bums on seats. Because you can't easily get 3D movies at home at the moment. However, at some stage in the future, it seems reasonable to expect that we'll have 3D monitors, and then 3D movies will become more practical in the confines of people's own living room. And at that stage, the technology will become more mainstream, it seems reasonable to expect. And for 3D movies, what you need is a 3D camcorder. Here we've got a single kind of home camcorder with just one lens, and we'll need binocular camcorders with two lenses in order to make 3D movies. So I expect binocular camcorders to arrive in the future, and here's a few images of binocular camcorders so you can see some idea of what they'd look like. Now, one of the things about binocular camcorders is that they can be used not to generate 3D movies, but also to improve both still images and camcorder images. So, to show you some autofocus problems that you get at the moment, I've got the autofocus turned on my Logitech camcorder that's looking at me now, and I'll show you some problems. So that's image in focus, and then you'll probably notice a fair amount of lag there, and the camera having a hard time deciding whether or not to focus on the foreground or the background of the image. And that's a common problem for today's cameras, basically. And quite a large proportion of the problem stems from the fact that the camera's only got one lens. The autofocus, often there's kind of a passive autofocus, so rather than sending an infrared beam out to the image and using radar techniques to see how far away the image is, the camera constantly adjusts its focus, and then when it thinks it has things sharp and images don't look blurry, then it decides that that's the sweet spot for the image. If you've got two lenses and are looking at things from two different directions, you can use triangulation in order to find out how far away things are, and then you can focus straight in on them without using any kind of trial and error technique. So passive autofocus improves dramatically, and there's several other ways in which things can be improved as well. If you've got two images, you can have one lens, one kind of camera focusing on the foreground of the scene, and another camera focusing on the background of the scene, and then from those two images you can reconstruct a much more detailed and in focus version of the scene that you're trying to look at, so you can have both the foreground and background in focus at the same time. That would work reasonably well for still images with sufficiently good reconstruction software to kind of paste the relevant bits of the two images together. If you're using a camcorder, it's probably not going to work so well, because there you've got constantly moving images, and if you try and kind of reconstruct the having both a foreground scene and a background scene in focus at the same time, it's probably going to be artifacts associated with imperfections in the software at generating the full scene out of the two images. But it seems to me that that's probably a soluble problem if you've got even more lenses. So rather than having just two lenses, if you had, say, 6 in a circle or something like that, then you'd be able to reconstruct the whole three-dimensional scene basically using software, and you'd have such a number of different points of view that they'd actually managed to kind of get the whole scene in good detail, and then once you've got the whole image in a 3D model, then that solves a whole variety of problems. Not only can you get the whole scene in focus simultaneously, you've got some of the best facilities available then for doing image stabilization, and yeah, basically having multiple lenses will sort out a whole variety of problems for camcorders. So hopefully the first step, binocular camcorders, and I look forward to the improvements in image quality as well as the possibility of making 3D movies. So enjoy.